Something's Coming Up, where the purpose is to release, to purge, to reach one, teach one, help one, save one, to stir up what's inside so something is always coming up. Today I have my daughter, Amalie Nichols, sitting with me, and the timing could not be more perfect. We now have President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. An amazing feat that we are elated and proud of. And we watched this election and went through 4 years of ups and downs and seeing what their America had to offer us and how it treated us. And so I wanted to sit with my daughter and get a perspective. I'm wondering, we have a Black female VP, someone that looks like us. That's amazing. And I know what I feel inside, and I'm wondering, what does it mean to young Black and brown and minorities and women and females in a whole? What does it feel like? What does it mean to you? What does the importance of this moment mean to you? And I thought this is a great opportunity to hear from a young adult how she feels. She can't speak clearly for all of the young adults, but I think her perspective is an important one and she should be heard. I'd love to know what this means to you, how you feel about it, and what's your vision on what you think it means. So before we start, my daughter is 14 years old, and I would like to get permission so people don't think I forced her to sit here and talk to me. So do we have permission to film you and air and edit? Are you okay with this? Are you comfortable? Yeah. Before we start, I want to share with you, right? So every time I have a guest, I have a green room, so to speak, where I have a display of things for them. And we was just relaxing and we spoke about it, come down and film. And when she came down and it wasn't a green room, she knows her worth, and she did let me know, oh, you don't have a green room set up for me. So I was checked. And she's 100% right, so I apologize. I should have had, you're just as valuable as anybody else to me, so I should have had that set up for you. And so instead of doing it the way I normally do it off screen, we eat and we talk and we get set up, I said, why not? We're home, we're in our home. We can eat and talk like we talk, but let's share with the people how you feel. So tell them a little bit about you, freshman in high school.
I'm 14, I'm a freshman in high school. Just started in September with COVID in my school, at least. Looks like things called like hybrid, 1 week on and 1 week off. So had to get used to that, and had to get used to getting to know new people during hybrid learning. So just getting comfortable in that, getting comfortable in a new location. Yeah.
So, and that COVID, again, something that's going on that's new, a freshman, a new high school in a new city for her. So she's leaving her old friends and meeting new friends, but she's not even meeting everybody in the school because she's only in school 1 week, and then some grades are in school, they alternate, and then she's home, and they don't get to intermingle during the day in school. So it's like all the 9th graders are together, all the 10th graders. So they're not getting to meet and have any kind of socialization as we normally would. So that in itself has been very challenging. Even for the parents, we're not getting to meet the new parents. It's a little different. How do we go to a school and see whose parent is who and which child is which? And she's not complaining, and they're making adjustments. I think they're a great example of getting it done, and transitions, which seem to be a little bit harder for us. What I want to talk about today more so is, the election year in a whole, watching this play out. And so before we even get started, right? Amalie had a paper that was due in school, and it was about the election. And she never told me she had the paper. She did it, and she read it to me afterwards. And her words Everything was from her, and I was moved by it. It was very powerful. It was very to the point. And I did ask, would you be okay reading it? So would you read it for them?
I'd rather you read it.
But it's your words. You're more comfortable with me reading it. So we do have her laptop here. I'm going to have her sign in while. So one thing I can say, in America, under the last 4 years, the racism that is obviously here was at one level. You knew it was here, but people covered it. People still was trying to be pleasant. And under this presidency, in my opinion, it was like the blanket was lifted, and it allowed everybody to show we can say what we want to say to you. We can treat you how we want to treat you, because our leader made us feel powerful enough that we can do that. And it changed a lot of relationships between people. But the communication in your home, you have got to have these conversations. And for those of you who have friends who are called your friends that don't look like you, if they're not using their voice to stand with you, that's a statement in itself. I am grateful for very close friends that I have, near and afar, that do not look like me, but have used their social media platform to use their voice to stand up against racism and injustice in any form. And to those people, I thank you, I thank you, I thank you. So right now, what I want to do is, again, you sure you don't want to read it? So I'm going to read this. This is something my daughter wrote for school, and it's titled Election Year. Okay. It starts, I remember 4 years ago when everyone was talking about how Hillary had missing emails or something. It didn't seem like people was as eager to find out the results of the election as they do this year. Maybe that was just because I was younger, so I wasn't engaged in the election or even politics at all. I was in the 5th grade, when every 5 minutes I was checking in my parents' room to see what the polls were saying. At that time, I didn't realize that the popular vote didn't matter. At that age, I was excited to see the first possible woman president winning the election. Knowing the little that I did then about women's history in America, I didn't show it, but I was so happy for her and knew that this was a big win for women across the country. Until later, I shared my joy with my dad, and he told me that she was losing the electoral vote, and that's what determines if she wins. At that time, I didn't know what that meant, but all of a sudden, a competitive fierceness grew in me. I started rooting her on. She ended up losing. The next day at school, my friends were talking about how they were moving out of the country and making jokes. We were all disappointed, but little did we know the next 4 years under the opposing candidate would be a big loss for all minorities, not only in America. 2020 has truly been a crazy year, and not even to top it all off, but it's an election year. This year, I have been the most engaged in politics, and I think a big part of the reason why is because of my age. I also have realized that since past generations have failed the youth in so many ways, I feel pressure to be involved because my generation has to fix what past generations have failed to succeed at. Another reason why I'm so engaged now is that in the past 4 years, I have been so self-aware of my identity, part of that being the minority group I fit into. With that, I have been forced to find and understand my place and where I stand in this country. The first 3 years under this president, I didn't understand the hate he received. All I knew was that I was supposed to agree with them because I'm Black. This past year, I think it's an understatement to say that my eyes have been opened. I now fully understand. I understand the threat that there are to my identities, to my Blackness, and to my womanhood. I truly get it now. This past year in their America has been a nightmare. I don't think America or minorities can survive another 4 years of their America. This is written by a 14-year-old, my daughter, and I am beyond proud She says I cry a lot and I get emotional a lot, and I do. But when you're home with me, we get just Amalie in her room, a typical 14-year-old on her phone, talking to her friends. Even if we try to engage in these conversations, this is not how she opens up to us. But time and time again, when I've seen you engage in school, and I've seen you have plays and speeches and things you have to do at school, I am truly moved by you. I'm amazed by you. You know I love you. And I tell you all the time, like if I try to hug her, she'll pull away. But I want you to share in your words, like under and outside of this, because this speaks volumes, right? But outside of this, under the president, the current president, number 45, how did you feel? You know, you're in communities where a lot of people may not look like you. And the different things you hear on different news programs and different shows. That I speak from me, but in your experience, how did it make you feel in the last 4 years under this presidency?
Well, like I mentioned in the chapter there, I really didn't understand, like, within the past 3 years why I didn't like him. And really, I just only started to understand, I would say, like, in maybe, like, June? No, like in May, honestly, is when I started to understand, like, why he got hate and why people didn't like him, and why people wanted him out. And I think that's when I understood not only then why people like hated him, but in the past years, because I've only, I've missed those past 3 years because I just didn't understand. I wasn't engaged in like politics in our country. So I think I really only have been, engaged and involved these past few months, and I think that's been enough for me to see.
When you say you've been engaged, right? So the last 3 years you may not have noticed as much because you weren't engaged. When you say now I'm seeing more, like give me an example of whether it's through schooling, reports, you reading stuff, or the news, something where you've seen stuff for yourself. Because I know a lot of times people think, and it's true, you hear your parents talk, you hear adults talk, and you form your opinions that way. Something on your own maybe that you've noticed that something just isn't right.
Well, I'm trying now to be better at it, but to look at unbiased news. But a lot of my news is from, and what I get my information from is from, like, when I do watch the news, only when it's on TV, CNN, but from my education in the past few months has been mainly from social media. And I mean, in some aspects that's not a good thing because you can't really tell what's true or what's biased. But from what I have gotten through social media, statements that he's made about women or about the Black community that I've seen, I've realized that there's a problem here, and his unprofessionalism as a man in power. I guess I saw my main problem was he's a threat to minorities, and things that he said has opened my eyes to what he supports and what his supporters support.
Because they're standing by him, and that in itself is a statement. If you can have someone say derogatory comments about women, and in the press have women stand up to speak, and he's telling them you're not so smart, or just degrading them, that's not even a social media thing. And I'm glad you brought that up. A lot of times people your age do tend to just look at social media and gravitate to what those comments are, and they must be true. So I'm glad you recognize that. But not just that, Amalie, it's something you touched on as far as he's made comments for me, just watching him in other aspects, small things, even before he was president, right? Little things he did. And I'm just like, you know, there was a mass there. But ever since he became number 45, the way he's displayed himself, and then the way he used his power even more to degrade women, minorities, and treat them as just you're disposable, like we don't matter. And I think I know even before this, we got you involved in Black Lives Matter, and you spoke on things you noticed, and then especially now when George Floyd came to his unfortunate passing, his murder. You've reached out and let me know there's a march here. I want to be an active role. So when she's saying she's engaging, these are not just words. My daughter will come to us and say, there's a march downtown Newark. I want to be a part of it. There's a march in South Orange or Montclair, and she's very vocal about it, and she's very active. And we talk to her because if this stuff is in her, I need to stay on top of it to monitor what you're feeling. So this is not just since the election. We try to constantly make her aware of her worth, her value, and to use her voice and for injustice for anybody. One of the things I'd like you to speak on is, so now you see someone who resembles you that is now sitting in power. A woman, Black, brown, African American, Caribbean descent as we are, went to a historically Black college, in a sorority. We have family members in a sorority. What does that feel like to you? What does, like, have you really thought about it in terms of, wow, like this is really possible, like this can really be done? What does it look like? What does it feel like when she was announced?
My main kind of view on it is just the representation, because like you said, it's not only representation for Black people, not only representation for, you know, women, so she's a part of different identities. So I think my main kind of excitement and joy of it is the representation of it. Different, not even minority, but different communities that she supports that don't have representation and don't have power, and don't have chances to be in seats like that. So to me, that's where all my kind of joy is.
And that's fair, and that's well stated. What are some of the things you think you'd like to see done?
Kind of like you said, for her to use her seat to, you know, represent us in a positive light, because like you said, the world is watching. And I think for the first woman in office, and the first Black woman in office, and Indian woman and Caribbean woman in office, the world is watching for her to mess up so they can give women and Black people and minorities a bad name, as if, you know, we don't belong in that position, or so they're watching for her mistakes. They're watching for positives also. So I think that is important for her to just, you know, understand that, which I'm pretty sure she already does, but yeah, for her to just understand that.
I think it's important that you said that. And one of the things I want to point out is, just like the world is watching, we all make mistakes. And this is a new role for her. One of my wishes for VP-elect is, don't beat yourself up. This is a new role. It is a powerful role. And there will be mistakes made. We all make mistakes. So let's not, as a nation, or she is representation. So let's not, the first thing that she misses or stumbles on, that we be the first one to publicly shame her, or, she's messing it up for us. We make mistakes. The only difference is Ours is not on a public forum. So she has an uphill battle. She has every dagger going to be thrown at her because there are people already who literally hate her, do not want her to succeed for various reasons. She's a woman. She's a woman of color. And they don't want that. So she doesn't have support from the beginning. And for me, I will continue to pray for her, as well as President-elect Biden. We don't want to forget him. It's a new role, but he's been somewhat in that arena already under President Barack Obama. So he kind of knows the ropes. He kind of knows how this works. But we wish them both well. I personally don't feel we're going to see big changes right away, because when you move in any house, you can't just start decorating and fixing. You got to clean out what was already done. And they have a lot to clean up. It's a mess. It's a house that was destroyed. And by house, I don't mean the White House. I mean that position. It was destroyed. And now they have to clean it and fix it. And then they can start the layers of making changes and improvements. Generally, it'd be adults that watch this, but someone may want to share this with their child or their family. Is there a message to, I'll ask it to you this way. Someone who doesn't share your views, someone who isn't willing to be open because of how you look, is there a message you want to share to them that they could apply to the new VP? And is there a message to your age group moving forward on what this country could do to be better, to make it better for you?
Well, to answer your first question, to somebody who doesn't, is unwilling to share the same opinion as me, or is unwilling to be educated, and like you said, a message to them, I guess, would be, and usually people use progressive in more liberal terms, but I really don't think it is. I think progressive just means progressive. So yeah, my message to them would be to have a progressive attitude towards things, and have a progressive mind and be open.
Mm-hmm.
And then a message to kids my age would be, even if you're not a minority, to be engaged in, and there's multiple ways to do that, but to be engaged and to start looking at, maybe not even the news, but just start looking into what's going on around you, whether that be in this country specifically, or just in the world in general. Start looking at current events and start looking at, if you're not a part of a minority group, start looking at ways that you can be a voice to minority group. A voice, I wouldn't say for minority groups, I would just say a voice, try your best to amplify minority voices. And if you are a minority, I think it's especially important that you engage yourself, because most of the time politics, specifically in America, directly affect you, because a lot of times when people aren't into politics, it's because, well, I'll say for the election, when people say like, oh, I didn't vote, or I'm not into politics like that, it's mainly because it doesn't affect them either way. Because whoever the president is, or whoever is going to be in office, is going to be, it's going to be beneficial to them either way. It's not going to harm them in any way. So I think to become engaged in your future and become engaged in your opportunities and try your best to amplify your own voice.
Well said. Is there anything you want to add to the viewers, to your friends? You have friends who may see this Is there any message you want to send them or any other kid, or anything that I may have missed that you want to share?
Not really. I think I kind of covered, because I think it can still relate. I think I kind of covered it all in the last question.
I appreciate you willing to sit down with me, because I do think it's important. And like you said, I think for those that don't vote because they feel like, what difference is it going to make? Or the comment we heard, it's the two of lesser evils. Which one do you pick? You have to have a voice. You can't want things changed in the court systems and the judges, and you have to make a start somewhere. I know 45 needed to get out. It was damaging. It was divisive, and it was stirring up. It was like a cesspool, stirring it up from the bottom and bringing it all out. And I'm glad, I'm proud so many people went out and voted, and it made a difference. It made a difference. For me, it should have been a landslide. And what that shows me and what that says is, there are people who still want that regime to continue the way it was, and that's terrible. But I'm glad the change is here. So congratulations. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing your voice to this important cause. I'm glad it's over. I'm very, very proud of you. And I'm glad you were able to share. This is Something's Coming Up. Please follow, share, and subscribe on Facebook and YouTube, Something's Coming Up, and on Instagram, official Something's Coming Up. We thank you. Continue to follow, share, and like. Have a great day.